Okay, this is the Samuel Simon Schmucker House. This house was built in 1833, and it was the president's house here at the Lutheran Seminary. It was the home of Professor Samuel Simon Schmucker. Runaway slaves actually received aid and shelter in a nearby barn to this house before they continued on their journey further north. Schmucker wrote and preached against slavery. He wrote, "God as one blood created all nations to dwell on the face of the earth. He has endowed them with all certain inalienable rights and obligations, such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All who fail to labor for the extinction of slavery are guilty of sin." Now, when Confederate troops marched toward Pennsylvania in June of 1863, Schmucker learned that the approaching rebels had planned to arrest him. He suspended his classes and he fled to York, Pennsylvania. Now, upon returning to his home after the battle, he received some bad news and some shock. "The house that I occupy," he wrote, "was most damaged. 13 cannonballs or shells pierced the walls, and everything in my house broken up by the rebels and contents scattered promiscuously with my books, papers, letters, etc." Now, one Confederate soldier actually retrieved Schmucker's Holy Bible from a pile of debris and then actually placed it upon his bookcase, having written J. G. Bearden of the Real Army. This is the Holy Bible I pick of and is placed on case again. And he wrote that inside the cover of the Bible. Now, there is evidence that remains here. There is an artillery shell that is still embedded in the side of the house here. And as you walk up here toward the porch, you'll see the artillery shell right there in the center of our camera. Also, this house does have a Civil War building plaque here on the side, and it sat here near the Lutheran Seminary. Now, one of the other questions I get is on my videos that are concerning witness trees. And there are a lot of witness trees in Gettysburg, but the tree across the street from the Schmucker house, right there in the center of the camera, is actually the oldest tree in Gettysburg. It's a large oak. It's from the year 1680, so it's well over 400 years old. And that is the oldest tree in Gettysburg. This has been the Schmucker Hall and the Witness Tree on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. A surviving witness tree on Culp's Hill. And I'm standing here today at Culp's Hill. In the distance, you can see the monument to the 149th New York Volunteers. And as I turn here this way, I can show you the left flank marker. And this is going to be a key to finding the witness tree at Culp's Hill. If you start here at the left flank marker of the 149th Pennsylvania and walk straight down into the woods, we'll walk about, I'd say, 30 yards before we come to the witness tree. Now, this witness tree, a photograph was taken not too long after the battle, and the photograph was nicknamed Battle Scarred Veteran. And then the story behind it is that it survived the Battle of Gettysburg, though it was hit with several artillery shells. When someone finally did find this tree, in the early 1900s, there was an attempt to repair the battle damage using chicken wire and cement. And actually, that is not good for a tree. As the cold weather gets to it, it expands, and the tree can crack even further. And if you look here today, here's the tree. The split in the tree is where the artillery shells had hit it, and if you look closely enough inside of it, you can still see some of the chicken wire and the cement in the middle. This is the only witness tree left on Culp's Hill that was a witness to the Battle of Gettysburg. This tree is probably about 175 years old. Again, right here in the center, you can see remnants of the chicken wire, and then as we get closer, you can actually see the repair work and the cement inside. Again, this has been the God Tree, or also known as the Battle-Scarred Veteran of Culp's Hill, a witness tree, and the only remaining one left up on Culp's Hill. This has been the Witness Tree on Culp's Hill on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. On with our video series on witness trees. Today we're going to take a look at this swamp oak that sits here along the Fairfield Road. Now, in 1863, the Fairfield Road was known as the Hagerstown Road, and that road took you from Hagerstown, Maryland, which is in this direction here where the cars are coming toward our camera, into Gettysburg. And just at the top of the hill in Gettysburg was the site of the old Middletown Road, which we recently done a video series on. That road veered off to the left and took you into the middle of Gettysburg, thus the name Middletown Road, rather. Now, this may be one of the only witness trees on the west side of that road. And along the old Hagerstown Road, or today the Fairfield Road, in the immediate Gettysburg area. Now, to give you an idea of where this tree, the swamp oak, is, and by the way, this swamp oak isn't in the greatest of shape. It had a large branch that fell off in the winter of 2013 and 2014 as we were hit pretty hard with wet, heavy snow. The tree has been deteriorating. It's probably not going to be around that much longer. And as I did the Reynolds tree back in 2013, I want to cover this tree before its life is gone. If you remember last year, I did a video series on the witness trees that were around Reynolds Avenue, where John F. Reynolds was killed. And by the way, that position is just right over here. This is Reynolds Avenue that leads out from the Fairfield Road over to the Chambersburg Pike, and the Reynolds Death Spot Monument is just about where my finger is. So in relation to that, and of course after I did that video series, I did an update a few weeks later because the National Park Service had deemed one of the witness trees there unsafe and cut it down so it wouldn't fall across the road. This tree, also being in the same condition, does run the risk to, as you can see, power lines and of course oncoming traffic on Route 116. So I wanted to make sure that I covered this tree one last time before its demise. It is a swamp oak. It's around 200 years old, and this tree was a witness to the first day's fighting here on Seminary Ridge. It was passed by troops coming off of the Emanuel Harmon farm and the battle that took place there, and then here onto the Iron Brigade, and of course beyond here over to the Lutheran Theological Seminary. So this tree was a witness to a lot of that first day's history. It was also passed by most of the Confederate generals, since the Confederate generals had come from the Cashtown area and Fairfield areas into this direction, and then of course scraped through the town on July 2nd into the southern end of the town, and then of course on the third day, most high command of the Confederacy had one time passed not too far by this tree. So it does have some significance here in American history and during the Battle of Gettysburg. Again, continuing on our witness tree video series that we've been doing, I want to take a look at this around 200-year-old swamp oak tree that sits here along the Fairfield Road, which in 1863 was the Hagerstown Pike. This has been Secrets of the Battlefield, Witness Trees, the Hagerstown Road Witness Tree here on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. We are looking at the General John Gibbon Witness Tree here on Hancock Avenue. This is probably one of the witness trees on the Gettysburg battlefield that is least known about, and yeah, it's in a prime spot. In fact, Just in the distance behind here is the high water mark, and you can see the copse of trees here just in the distance. And just in this direction over here is the Pennsylvania Monument. So it sits here on this ground that was defended by troops under General John Gibbon here on July the 3rd, 1863. And it sits right across the Hancock Avenue from the battery of the Battery G of the 5th U.S. Artillery, 12-pound rifles under the command of Lieutenant Goling V. Wire, who was their commanding officer. Right across the street is the Gibbon Witness Tree, and this tree is about 160 years old, and it's in fairly decent shape. It is one of the smaller witness trees on the Gettysburg battlefield, so therefore people do tend to ride by here on their way to the high water mark and don't realize it's a witness tree. But this has been the Gibbon Witness Tree here on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Okay, we are on Confederate Avenue, and in front of us is the Philip Snyder House, and it's over here on Warfield Ridge. And today I want to fulfill a request that was requested a few months ago about the location of the Longstreet Witness Tree. Now, the Longstreet Witness Tree began growing around 1715, and finally in the year 2002 it was taken out by a storm, died, and it was cut down. And today you can come to the Gettysburg National Military Park, and they make ink pens and walking sticks and different items from the original tree. But the location that the tree sat at was just a few yards here in front of us. You have the Philip Snyder House here in the distance, and then against the wall you have a tree here, and then there's a walking path. And right here where the walking path meets the road, the only thing that's left here in this patch of ground is a little depression in the ground where the tree once sat, and I guess when it was taken out with the roots and all, there was a depression left in the road. But that was the spot that for well over 200, closer to 300 years, the Longstreet Witness Tree sat right here and stretched into the air. Now, in this particular area, you have the Philip Snyder House here, and of course we have the Alabama Monument here. That tree that sticks out here from the road is a witness tree that I did a video on earlier, as is one across the road that sits back in here. But the Longstreet tree at one time was one of the oldest trees on the Gettysburg National Military Park. As I stated earlier, it was began growing around 1715, and it died in 2002. So it had quite the lifespan here, and it sat here in the depression in the ground, right here at the base of this horse path, right here where you see this hole in the ground. This has been the Longstreet Witness Tree that once sat on Warfield Ridge on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook.